First at 6, Hawaii's medical marijuana industry is entering a new era as the federal government declares cannabis does have medicinal value.
The Justice Department order delisting medical marijuana as a dangerous drug took effect today. Daryl Huff explains how it will affect Hawaii.
The change in legal status for medical marijuana will make it a little easier to do business for local dispensaries, but what they're really looking forward to is a change in attitude by politicians and potential customers.
That cannabis does have medicinal value, that there is a place for cannabis in the lives of a patient, and that they shouldn't feel this stigma and this idea that it is illegal and that they should be looked down upon.
As of today, medical marijuana is no longer considered by the federal government to be as addictive or dangerous as heroin or cocaine, and that it has medical uses like testosterone or ketamine. That means the dispensaries selling it are no longer technically violating federal law, bringing easier access to banks and tax breaks.
We will now be able to apply our expenses when we sell cannabis towards the revenue of cannabis. Before, we'd have to eat the expense, so we were being double taxed.
But because Hawaii dispensaries make their own cannabis products, the tax break won't be as significant as for mainland retailers who have to buy from producers.
I actually don't think it will have much of an impact on the dispensaries in Hawaii.
So I think this could be great for patients.
Dr. Clifton Otto predicts that the new legal status could bring many more people into the medical cannabis program.
This could be very attractive for potential patients who have stayed away from the program because they don't want to be federal criminals and they don't want to be associated to all the discrimination associated with firearms possession and employment.
It will also make it much easier for established medical researchers to study cannabis medical effects.
And so now you'd be able to actually take the products that are on the shelves that people are using and do research and study on how they are effective.
It would also provide a level of federal standardization and oversight that might make patients feel more comfortable.
Dispensaries will have to apply for DEA registration and regulation.
We hear that DEA agents will also now accompany the state licensed officials on their inspections.
We've already spoken to DEA, the local DEA agents. We've spoken to our state narcotics enforcement division. We're still trying to figure out how everything is going to fit together. But I think our state program is pretty well suited for this.
What's unclear is whether this will affect patients who use homegrown products or whether rules against flying with medical cannabis will be repealed. The other thing marijuana advocates are excited about is that the federal change will make it much easier for states to legalize recreational marijuana for adults. Reporting from Makiki, Daryl Huff, Hawaii News Now.